Happy Monday, everybody. Happy Monday. If you're on here, hit that like button. Hit the like button. tag anybody on the show that you think may find it interesting. This should be fun. This should be informative. So, a video dropped last week that included Cynthia G and a few of the panelists, and it was going over this topic again of interracial dating and whether or not Black women should expand their options. So, y'all already know I had to hop on this because we talk a lot about this, but this conversation isn't going anywhere. This topic isn't going anywhere, and I think it's important that we continue to address what is happening, what isn't happening, so that women can be prepared, whether or not they decide to date interracially or intraracially. I really believe that women need to be prepared. Women should have a choice, but whatever they do, they need to have the awareness of what is actually going on. So we're going to get into it. Also, guys, if you would like to show support the show, please do. You can find on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. As always, I will be sure to launch our super chats. Support your favorite content creators, y'all. So I'm just going to get right into it, and then we'll go from there. But first off, I want to make sure the audio was good. So I'm going to start playing it, and then if you guys get like a weird echo or something, let me know down in the comment section, because every so often I get this echo depending upon the setting I'm on. So y'all, I'm gonna start playing it. If you hear any audio issues, let me know. Okay, and also, guys, if you're joining, hit the like button, like, subscribe, share, all that stuff. So without further ado, let me bring this up, and then we are going to get right into it. Okay.
I know many of us have been Judice.
Well, you already gave the answer to the question. Most people grow up hoping that they can find someone within their own race, ethnic culture. And again, that's what most people are socialized to do. So it's no reason that Black women wouldn't want the same thing.
Well, true, but I mean, for some, it just seems to be a struggle, or it almost feels fruitless. Jenna Brooks, why do you think we prefer, generally, I mean, my friends, the people I know, we generally prefer Black men?
Okay, guys, so I'm checking it. I see. Okay, so video. I'm not playing a video because, um, y'all know, or maybe you don't know. Sometimes the way the copyright strike issue goes, and if you use content, if you use like full audio and video content from certain channels, they will strike you. So we're just doing a still image in the audio today. Bear with me. But okay, it sounds like the audio was good now. Yeah, copyright issues. Exactly. Yes. So I can't. Unfortunately, I'm not always able to use video. I can use video, I think, more so for like TikTok or certain accounts, but it's hit or miss on YouTube. So sorry, guys, just the visual today, but bear with me. Hey, guys, for those of you joining in, hit the like button. Also, show support to the show. Um, yeah, support to the show. If you can find me on Cash App or Venmo, Shay Sade. As always, I will be sure to acknowledge all super chats. So, okay, basically what they said starting off, she just posed the question, why basically should Black women expand their options, and why does it seem that Black women are not marrying or dating out as much as Black men? So that's kind of what she started the conversation off as. Then we're going to continue. Okay. All right, so let me bring it back up.
There's no one like a Black man. I mean, you know, their swagger, yes, they have their problems, but I just believe that we as a race need to come together. And I can't think of any other race that has this problem where their counterparts, they can't get together. And so I think it's the problem of racism, it's the advertisement. And I think a lot of Black men have bought into the standard of beauty in America. And, you know, there's some things that we as Black women.
Okay, so real quick, I agree with pretty much everything she said up to that point. It's this woman right here who was speaking. She basically talked about, which I agree, you don't really have these issues, or you don't really hear other cultures talking about these issues. Not to say they don't have their own experience with colorism or don't have their own infighting, but other cultures seem to be pretty, they seem to be functioning okay, to a certain extent. They are marrying each other. We don't see them going out openly and berating their women. Like we don't hear should white women continue marrying, dating white men. Like we hear conversations like that. So I agree with her up to that point. Where I would slightly disagree, or at least push back, is say that we can't say that Black men have bought into colorism without also basically including Black women into that same thing. Because look, in my own life, I'm sure we all know people who maybe have said colorist things. We've all experienced that. But I'm like, as a Black person, best believe you've probably experienced it from men and women. I can think of close friends of mine. I can think of people in my family, men and women, who have said colorist things. So I always take issue with the fact that colorism is something that only men perpetuate, when we know that men are raised by women, and we know that it's very common to hear a woman talking about good hair and light skin and good eyes, and like literally praising, to a certain extent, praising certain hair textures or praising certain features, literally highlighting their face, contouring their face so they can get lighter looking features, but then also go and complain about colorism. Get blonde weaves, get long straight weaves, get hairstyles that emulate white women or non-Black women, but then complain about colorism or Eurocentric beauty features. So it's like, already to me, that framing I think is a little bit incomplete. Yeah, we can say that maybe some Black men have been impacted by Eurocentric beauty standards. That's what happens when you're in the West and you are in a Western society with Western civilization, with Western ideals. That's not surprising, but we can't just say it will be Black men. Like, if we want to say Black men can be colorist, then it's also Black women, because all we got to do is look at the evidence, right? And then it's like, who is raising the men? Like you can't really separate it. You can't separate this conversation. Also, I mean, by and large, Black men are still marrying Black women. So to me, I don't know what's any non-colorist than somebody who's willing to actually share their wealth and the resources with you. But anyways, y'all. Okay, so let me continue, guys. If you're here, hit that like button. Y'all, show support to the show. I have 93 on here and 0 super chats or cash apps. So if you're here, show some love, support your favorite content creators. And then I'll be sure to watch those super chats. So let me pull this back up and we will continue.
Women need to face and do too, facing our truths. So yes, I am for Black men, and I am for Black women staying with Black men.
Okay, I'm Justin Blue. I'll ask you the same question. Why do you think Black women prefer Black men? Why do you think we hold out and hold on?
Well, first of all, there's cultural commonalities. And no one's going to understand you like someone who comes from your race, comes from the same struggles as you. And yes, there's different struggles, sub-struggles that we have, but collectively as Black people, there's no one that's going to understand you like a Black man is going to be able to understand a Black woman, and vice versa. And so Black woman wants to be understood. She wants somebody that can love her the way that she wants to be loved and have that deep understanding. And so she searches for that within a Black man.
And Black men are fine, let's face it. But look, I mean, I also think that even though we're highlighting the differences and Black men are twice as likely to marry outside their race as Black women, we still remain among the least likely ethnic groups to marry outside of race overall. So I think it can be overstated, the divisions, even though they do exist.
But I think it's also interesting, or important rather, to state what percentage of Black men who are marrying Black women. So when we put out the statement of Black men are 2 times as likely to date or marry outside the race, it's also important to state that majority of married Black men are marrying Black women.
So again, he makes a really, really good point. He makes a good point that, yeah, Black men do date and marry. They marry out more. Black men marry out more than Black women. And I think this is kind of the premise of the conversation. It's like, okay, well, why? Why is it that Black men are marrying out more? Is it because they're less race loyal? Is it because they're more colorist? Is it because they're more into the exoticals? All of that. And so this is one of the things that is fueling the conversation. But even though Black men are marrying out more, the overwhelming majority of them still date and marry within their own ethnic group, their own race. Even high value or high earning men still overwhelmingly marry within their own race. So I agree with that point. Okay, let me continue.
And so if we just use the one statistic without the other, it could really give us skewed information or a skewed lens.
Cynthia G, you say you're tired of Black men. Explain what you mean by that.
Listen, I first want to answer your first question. There is a reason why Black women are running around chasing this mythological dream of Black love that Black men have not bought into and have shown that in many different ways.
So yeah, of course, right there, I disagree there. Black love is not a mythological dream. This is just how people survive. This is what people do to survive for cultures to continue. Men and women within certain cultures marry to continue. This is not some fantasy, like this isn't something made up. This is not like a fairy tale. This is just how cultures continue to exist. It is not complicated. So already I don't understand the framing of that point, because I'm like, there's nothing mythological about people within their own race marrying each other. That's not like mythos. That's just what people do. That's how societies survive. Like, what? What's going on, Marco Polo? Shout out to you for the $4.99 piece, beloved. Shout out to Kevin C, a faithful supporter here. It's always good to see you. It says dating, marrying out of the race is a non-issue. Right. I've said that like so many times. Dating and marrying out is a non-issue. The real issue is the overall 30% Black marriage rate. When they marry 85% of Black men marry Black women. Yeah, I mean, this is bingo. Like I said, the overwhelming majority of Black men marry Black women. Now, I mean, you know, there's all this talk and there's all this bickering online. And if you just go off of the online narrative, you would believe that like Black women hate Black men and are just divesting left and right. And then you would believe that Black men are going abroad and choosing like Thai women. Like if you just like went off of the online narrative, you might come away with a different conclusion than what's actually happening in real life. So some of the stuff I think is just really goes into, it's more about ad money. It's more about like promoting certain messages or getting paid, but it's not necessarily results. Overwhelmingly today, Black men marry Black women. This is not difficult. This is not surprising. This is just what cultures do. Overwhelmingly today, white men marry white women. Chinese men overwhelmingly marry Chinese women. Like this is not difficult, y'all. You don't need to have a deep scientific research on this to understand that this is just generally how cultures operate. So let me continue.
The first way being, we already know with them dating out at least 2.5 times more than Black.
2.5 times more. Again, you're talking a couple of percentage. It's not like 2.5 times more where it's like, oh, 70% of men are marrying out. It's like 15%, right? Compared to what, like 9-10%. So again, very insignificant, really insignificant if you look at it. But nevertheless, we continue.
Women, but Black women specifically, and I agree, it is a cultural dynamic. And within this culture, we put way too much of an emphasis on Black men. We're calling them kings, although they have no kingdom. We're sold into this narrative.
Okay, by the way, she wouldn't be able to say that in like Africa or any other nation that is like ran by Black people. Saying that black men are calling themselves king with no kingdom, like, do y'all think she could go to like Nigeria or Kenya or Ghana or Gambia or Zambia or say that kind of stuff? Like, so to make these sweeping generalities, I think is quite unfair, disingenuous. But again, this is the convenience of social media, and this is a convenience that we have today, where it's like we're so privileged to a certain extent as women, as Black women, in America, in some regards, that like we can go online and literally insult the very men and the very people that actually gave us the freedom we have today. That's how privileged we are. So, I mean, like I said, that wouldn't pass. If she was in another place, that wouldn't pass. But she's in America and she's on Fox Soul. So here we are.
As Black women, that if we consider an option outside of Black men, then we are betraying the race.
Yeah, not true. Like nobody cares. Nobody really cares about who Black women date like that. I in my humble opinion, it's just more recently until now you're starting to get pushback mainly from the manosphere because they feel like there's a whole bunch of different hypocrisy going on. You know what I mean? But like by and large, nobody really cares. Other races of men have had access to Black women in America since slavery. So it's not, whether it's conscious or subconsciously, I think we've kind of been trained to know that, like, yeah, there's always going to be a certain aspect of Black women who are out dating and marrying out with somebody else like that, because that is a part of the history of America. Now, Black men, they've been policed. The amount of, false grape charges, and think of Emmett Till, you know what I mean? Like that is a prime example. Black men's dating options in general is policed, but especially Black men. So no, I don't buy the fact that Black women are necessarily shamed. If that was the case, then Maya Angelou's of the world, the Angela Davises of the world, like Diana Ross, like all these women, Lena Horne, all these women who have had a lot of say, had a lot of power, had a lot of influence, Serena Williams, who have had white partners, they would be canceled. But that's not the case. They are revered and they are honored and they're respected, as they should be, although they had white partners. So let me continue. Again, guys, if you're here, hit that like button. Also, show support to the show. You can flash up Venmo, sure. Let me continue. Okay.
Betraying ourselves, and that it is our duty as Black women to stick to Black men so that we can carry the Black community on our backs. As I've said, Black men have largely already opted out of this. Black men have, since getting off the plantation, in the case of Pace v. Alabama, fought the Supreme Court to have access to white women. So Black men were never really bought into this Black love notion, but Black women have been. So now you have it.
Again, this narrative is so flushed out that it completely overlooks. It just completely overlooks like historical examples of Black men who literally fought and went back and got their kids out of slavery. Some of them were able to purchase their wives and kids out of slavery. It's just flat out untrue. It is flat out untrue. And you know what I liked about this panel was that I saw a little bit of pushback. I saw a woman be like, how are we now implicating an entire people group into the mistakes that have been made from one? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, but now there were Black men out there who were selling people out, just like there were Black women. There were Black men who had all kinds of bad intentions. Absolutely. But the very fact that we are here today as women able to go online and speak and have jobs and run on plantations is because people fought. Like, don't get it twisted. It's because men and women fought. Don't get it twisted. So that to me, that's the whole thing about this entire conversation that gets to be so disingenuous, because it is a completely false narrative when you extract key points of information from historical narratives and conveniently overlook others. Like it is such a disingenuous conversation. But let me continue. Y'all, hit that like button.
Where the community as a whole, both Black men and Black women, who condemn and shame Black women who even think about going outside of their race. We're called bed wenches, we're called traitors, we're called every name under the sun, everything but a child of Christ. So at the end of the day,
so just let me interject here for a moment, Cynthia G. I think that you're correct. It's wrong to shame anyone. People should be able to love who they want to love, and no shade, no shame.
Right.
At the same time, I don't think it's fair to say Black men haven't bought into the concept of Black love, or that Black men sued to get access to white women. I think they sued to have the same choice that you want to have,
right,
which is to love who they love.
Well, the fact of the matter is, we can say they had a choice to love who they want to love, but essentially Black men were petitioning the Supreme Court to specifically have access to white women. So, I mean, we can try to act like that's not the case, but the case is on the docket.
The vast majority still marry Black women. But let's go.
They don't.
Right.
They don't.
That's
So that's
no.
another lie that we're sold.
Well, let her continue.
We're sold that the vast majority of Black men marry Black women.
The data do show that.
But they do.
Well,
exactly.
The data shows that of the
yeah,
small percentage of Black
everybody
men
in the
do
panel is
get
like,
married,
ma'am. Everybody's in the panel like, ma'am. Actually, no, it does. The data show that for those who marry, the overwhelming majority of Black men who marry Black women. Like, this is not difficult. But what's so interesting to me about this entire conversation up to this point is that everything is about Black men's fault. Everything is about Black men's fault. There is not one thing. There is not in the entire history of America, as she has herself explained it, there is not one time where any Black woman was culpable of anything wrong. Not one thing, not one iota thing. It was all Black men's fault. That's the most interesting thing about this entire argument, which is why it's not done in good faith. Or at best, there is huge omission, because relationships are a two-way street. So even if somebody in the relationship is wrong, there's another person. Like there's never a dynamic that exists where a person is 100%, one person is 100% right and the other person is 100% wrong. There's usually always a little element of truth on both sides. So like I said, it is a bad faith argument. Shout out to Kevin C again with the 120 HNL. What is it? What is that? Honduras something. I don't know how you say it, but shout out to you again. It says this is a fallacious discussion and assumes all Black men and women are worthy of marriage. Productive Black men won't marry Black women without serious. Yes. Also another good one. Not all people are marriage material. Not all people are. Not all women want to get married. I mean, you literally have the amount of viral TikTok videos I've seen of modern women coming online and saying, "Look, marriage didn't benefit me. Actually, marriage is trash." Is like, I feel like it's increasing. So you have women out there who legitimately don't want to get married. So we can't blame men for not marrying women who don't want to get married, who say they don't need a man. Like, there is that element of it too. And then also, even if you do want to be married, you have to be prepared. Now we're talking about wife culture. Now we're talking about, whether or not Black women as a collective are even told how to be wives and are told, okay, here's how you find a good man. Or are we told to be independent, make our own money, hog girl summer, don't trust these ninjas, you know what I mean? Because these ninjas are going to leave you. Like, which one are we told? So it's like, let's be honest, y'all. Okay, let me continue. Let me continue. Again, guys, hit that like button if you're here. If you were here, hit that like button. And let me bring this up.
But here's the thing, most Black
Miss
women get married.
Cynthia G, why don't you go ahead and answer the question about why you're tired of Black men, so then Janet Brooks can come in because she really has a comment.
So what I'm more tired of than Black men is this notion of holding Black women hostage to Black men. Because typically when we have the discussion, we're not thinking about whether or not Black women's dedication to Black men actually benefits Black women. Statistically, it does not.
Okay, let's talk about this. What is this false notion of Black woman's undying dedication to the Black race? What is this false notion? I mean, in America is a individualistic like country where people generally move for their own individual best interest. So, like, we live in a capitalistic system where people kind of do what's best for themselves, and then all of a sudden, when we try to blame people, it's like it's all the community's fault. You know what I mean? That's where I think it can kind of get a little bit confusing. But nevertheless, like, who and how did we come to this idea that Black women as a whole are just undyingly loyal to Black men? And this is where I think the conversation can get a little bit disingenuous, because lack of options is not loyalty. I think what oftentimes is not really being talked about is the really, really hard and difficult truth of what it means to be a Black woman in America with a horrible reputation. Like I said, there is no culture, at the very least in America, that looks at marrying into the Black community as a level up. Let's just be honest. You don't see Indian cultures. You don't see Chinese cultures. Definitely not white cultures. Like by and large, a person marrying into a Black family is not seen as a level up. Now, of course, you're going to have, rare examples if it's like, an elite family, or there may be a politician or an actor or something like that. But by and large, if you're talking about culture to culture, when cultures are talking about loyalty, usually it's like, okay, please marry within your culture. And then sometimes the exception may be, or you can marry a white person. That may be like the one exception. You know what I mean? But Black women, unfortunately, by and large, we do not have a great reputation. And other races of men have had access to the collective of Black women, not only since the beginning, quite literally since slavery, if you want to go there, even since, Love versus Virginia. Yet the interracial marriage rate has not significantly gone up. This is not because there are a whole bunch of Black women going around who are turning down Brad, who are turning down, Hispanic men or Asian men, and turning down all these proposals. And there's all these men who are just wanting to be with a Black woman, but we're saying, no, we're not going to accept your engagement. We're not going to accept your wealth. We're not going to accept all of your assets. We're not going to accept your socio-political power. We're not going to do that. We're going to hold out for the fantasy of Black love. That's not happening. That is not happening. What nobody is talking about is the very fact that at the end of the day, there is a divide, and there is quite frankly, there is a huge issue of marriageable Black women in the Black community. And then, like I said, if you have Black men complaining that it's hard to find Black women to marry in their community, they're talking to other races of men. This message is going out. So other men are seeing that and being like, I don't, that's a liability. Because again, as a race of women, like I said, we have horrible PR. I'm not saying that's all true, but we do. The PR for Black women sucks. I talk about this all the time. So nobody looks at marrying a Black woman as a level up. I'm talking about the collective. And so the truth is, there's just a lot of races of men who just strictly do not want to marry Black women. They will maybe have sex with a Black woman. They may even get them pregnant. You know what I mean? But when it comes to settling down, especially when you're talking about trying to do the hypergamy thing, or you're talking about trying to marry into a particular class, it becomes even more difficult. And this is, to me, I think what's not really being openly talked about is the actual racial dynamics, where it's like, yeah, you will have a select group of men of other ethnicities who would be happy to marry a Black woman if she is lovely, fit, feminine, friendly, all of that. But you also have men who will be like, maybe I would, but there's pressure in my family to not do it. Or if I did marry a Black woman, I could lose my inheritance. Or I'm just not interested in Black women. Like there's all these different things going on. And this, to me, is one of the issues with this conversation. Like, we're not talking about the fact that it's not just about Black women's loyalty to Black men. It's the fact that other races of men have to, with open arms, be willing to accept an entire group of women in. And they've had decades to do so. And yet we have not seen there be a huge increase. This is not because of loyalty. This is not because Black women are turning down all of these proposals from non-Black men. It's partially because, or I think it's a big reason, is these other men aren't necessarily wanting to integrate. They're not. And it's not fun to talk about. It ain't fun to talk about. And it's not, it can shatter sometimes the psychology of women who need this sense of validation from other cultures, from white men, from whatever. It can shatter this sense of, wow, there's other people who don't maybe see me as beautiful, or there's other people who perceive me this way. But that's the truth. That is the truth. So again, y'all, if you're on here, hit that like button. Also, shout out to Hakeem. I see you with the 15 on the Cash App, and Andrew Kamani with the 5 on the Cash App. I do appreciate you. We are going over should Black women stop dating Black men. This was a recent interview that happened on Fox. So we're just doing a reaction to it. So let's continue.
So more so than me being tired of Black men, I'm more tired of this notion that Black men have to be rooted to men who really, quite frankly, have nothing to offer them except their Blackness.
Okay, that's a lot right there. Ms. Brooks, go ahead.
First of all, there are no absolutes. I don't want anyone taking Black women and putting them all in one category.
Right, that part.
But I will say this, and I'm going to start with us as Black women. We as Black women have to learn to love ourselves and teach people how to treat us. We can't blame Black men for the things that we allow. Like, he's dating 3 different women and you're okay. Or, he's married, but you're dating him. And I'm going to speak from a Black woman's perspective. I don't blame Black men for that. I blame us for taking it.
Okay, so here's another thing too. So again, I agree. This woman over here speaking, I agree maybe with aspects of it, but I don't agree with everything because again, so the assumption is that, okay, so Black men are over here treating Black women bad. Black men are over here, with multiple baby mamas, sleeping around, creating all these kids out of wedlock, all this. What's going on, Real Femme Sapien? Good to see you here. What's going on? But yeah, so this is the thing about this whole narrative that I don't agree with, that the collective of Black men are over here doing the whole Pookie and Ray Ray kind of behavior. That's not true. Y'all, we already know that's not true. 80-20 rule, I think we all, if you're not familiar with this, that 80% of women go after the top 20% of men. If you actually look at the amount of single parents, the majority of single parents in the Black community are Black women. The minority are Black men. Like, it is overwhelmingly different. When you look at the amount of, even sexual access, like Black women have a ton of more sexual access than Black men. And this is just races in general. The rule goes that basically, again, the majority of women are going after the top, 20% of men, whether it's in looks or whether it's in wealth. So women are, quite frankly, naturally hypergamous. This, again, is biological. But what this means is that women are going after a particular type. This is why you have the Nick Cannons of the world, the Futures of the world, the Eddie Murphys of the world, right? Men who have multiple baby mamas and counting, some of them, and literally counting. And these women choose to do this. So if you're a woman who got together with a man that already had a couple of kids, already had a couple of baby mamas, and then you get upset when he can't pay as much, he's not as involved, he's not helping financially, he's not as available. If you do that, that is not the fault of the collective of Black women when the overwhelming majority of Black men today are single and childless. You cannot blame the majority of Black men who are single and childless on the minority of men who are doing this behavior. So that whole argument right there, that's why I didn't really fully disagree. I do agree that, yes, women as a collective, we do treat men, or we do teach men how to treat us, yes, but we can't say all men are doing this. Like, not all men are doing that. I think there are F-boys out there, obviously, and we should also be talking about, my humble opinion, how I don't think a lot of us are even taught how to choose right. A lot of us are not raised to what to look for. A lot of us are encouraged to go after a certain prototype, even if we think of the way Black men are portrayed in media in these different roles in television, and how they're either like super feminized or super hyper masculine, but usually like in a degenerate way. So it's like even the representations of Black masculinity online are not necessarily healthy. So we take that programming and then we try to apply it in our real life, and it's bad. It is bad. Shout out to Dane C with the 2. It says, Shay, hey, most people date within their own group. Yeah, like I said, that's true. Most people date within their own group. And no shade to people who want to date and marry out. Like, literally no shade to it. But can we be honest about like why some people aren't dating and marrying out? You know what I mean? Like, and why Black women aren't necessarily having the results that they want? It's not just because they're so loyal. That's a lie. That is a lie. Let's continue.
We have to take a stand and think better of ourselves and put ourselves on a different level, whether you're white, Latino, whoever you decide to date, you're going to get the same thing if you don't make changes in the way you treat yourself in the way that you look at yourself. And it has to start with Black women.
I feel like
This is the problem.
hold on. I feel like I need to bring in.
I do agree with her though. She's like, look, whether or not I agree with the framing, what she's saying is like, look, we got to start with Black women. So I'm like, hand clap to her there. She's right. She is right. Like, yes, if a person wants to see change individually, it has to start with them. If you want to see change in, on a collective, then it has to be multiple people who are willing to be like, okay, let's take accountability.
Activist Justin Blue. I feel like it's crazy having all these women arguing about Black men and not letting the brother speak. Go ahead, Mr. Blue.
I identify far more as a life coach than activist. I'm just a Black man who happens to care and is able to do things about it. But there was a statement regarding Black men holding Black women hostage. And I think that's very interesting to explore, because how are Black men holding Black women hostage regarding marriage and dating? And then, like, what resources and what position of power are we in to control those sorts of things? Now, when it comes to marriage, who normally gets on their knees and requests to say, you know what, I want this person to be my wife,
right?
Or my husband? Who's requesting marriage? Who tends to have that decision? I'll ask everyone present.
Well, men do. Well, men request marriage, but we know statistically Black men in the large majority do not get married. And what I was
okay, so let's just assume that's true. Black men in the large majority do not get married. Okay, Black women also don't. There are more Black men married than Black women today, although there are like more than, I think, 2 million Black women than Black men. Again, there's a higher number of Black men married than Black women. So if we're gonna go and try to judge men and say, oh, well, y'all ain't getting married, then actually Black women are more guilty because less of us are actually married. So it's like, I mean, if you want to go there, then based upon that logic, both of us are guilty. Both Black men and Black women are like guilty. So like, what are we even saying?
What I'm gonna say is that it's not just Black men that seek to hold Black women hostage to Black men. It is also Black women or elder Black women who seek to give us this notion of no pain, no gain. You need to sit in a relationship with Black men, struggle, earn him, prove that you're worthy of his affections. And I think that's not healthy for Black women. If you look at reports like the Brookings Institute that is detailing that Black women would be wanting to date and marry Black men is keeping them rooted to poverty. It is making Black men very arrogant and narcissistic because
what? Okay, that I literally covered this off a few weeks ago, where it says, first of all, people who not only date but marry young and stay married young are the most financially well off. Again, people who marry and stay married are the most financially well off. This society was based upon families. Think about it. You think about how people get taxed when they're married versus when they're single. And then you think about having homes, things like that. Again, this society was set up for families, marriages, with the assumption people are going to have families. So I don't know what she's choosing. I don't know what she's pulling from. I addressed this since literally one of my wives, like I think a month or two ago, but that's just not true. And did you guys not hear about the report that came out recently about how Black women are at the highest rate of evictions? Black women are the most likely to be evicted. There's another report that came out that said, you know who else is the most likely to be evicted? You know who else is at the most risk for homelessness? Single mothers. Black women, again, have the highest rate of single motherhood. So it's like, what are we even talking about? Like, all of the reports, all the data out there says the exact opposite. It says if you choose to be a baby mama, and if you choose to make especially kids with a man that already has other baby mamas, you're likely going to be on the struggle bus, like upset and mad. Nowhere in there did I ever read anything that said that marrying another person, two people coming together, maybe bringing together their different resources, whatever it may be, two people coming together to build a family is going to impact negatively their financial portfolio. Never seen that. Now, if you want to talk about divorce, that's a whole different issue. And even at that point, usually men get screwed over men get screwed over more. So it's like, no matter how you shape it or look at it, no, women are not being hurt by marriages like that. Now, if you marry a Pookie If you marry a dude that ain't worth nothing, that's a whole different conversation. But you shouldn't be doing that to begin with. And again, the overwhelming amount of evidence shows that people who marry, especially if they marry young and they stay married for decades, they are the most financially stable. Cap. This is all cap, y'all. This is all cap. I don't understand. Like I said, I don't understand the need sometimes for folks to try to downplay marriage. It's especially when this is the very thing. I mean, there are other benefits to marriage than just financial stability. Like, I mean, legacy, building a family in a stable home. There's so many different benefits, but one of them is financial. And post-recession, with Black single mothers and Black women being the most at risk for eviction, we're really going around and lying to these women and telling them they can have a soft life away from men, away from Black men who are the most likely to marry them, and they're going to be okay and they're getting evicted. Do you see how this stuff is toxic? Do you see how this stuff hurts women? It's all based upon narrative, and it's all based upon my personal opinion, just hurt feelings. It's like nobody who grew up with a functional family or saw people with functional, healthy families believes this. At best, you would believe, okay, yeah, there are some toxic people out there. There are some toxic men. There are some toxic Black men, but there are some good ones. That's what you would actually believe if you had a more balanced experience, if you had seen the good and the bad. So the only person who would walk away with that conclusion is somebody who has never experienced anything good. And that's actually sad. Shout out to Passport OG with the 2. So I don't know what currency that is, but shout out to you. It says G is the poster child for Y square Black men, SYSBM. Literally, I did a video about this, how I was like, Cynthia G is the best. She is the best marketer for SYSBM. She is the best promoter. She is. I'm like, I got to give her hats off, because I think she consistently gives free promotion to Passport Bros and SYSBM. You know, I mean, hats off to her. I have to give it to her. Hats off to her. Okay, let me continue. Shout out to Eugene still with the 5. I see everything that comes out of Cynthia G's mouth is just based on her hatred of Black men and has the audacity to try to sound intellectual about it. You know, I ain't gonna lie. That to me, that's the issue I'm hearing so far, because it just all sounds like narrative personally. And you know, we continue to go on into the panel. You do have them like pushing back and being like, no, that's actually not true because of this, because of that. So she did get some pushback, but like I said, nobody who has had positive, fulfilling experiences with men in their own community would come to this conclusion. So usually when, again, women get online and share this level of hatred and passion towards it, it speaks more to their own experience. And like I said, that to me is sad. The issue is, though, now when you try to make that be everybody else's experience, it's like, no, that's where it needs to stop. Okay, let's continue. Shout out to the question, why is no one asking to marry you? I mean, shout out to Kevin C. Again, that's a good question. Nobody, but these are the questions that sometimes lovely ladies don't want to have, because again, that would require a huge level of honesty, and that would require self-reflection. That may actually require looking in the mirror and understanding and acknowledging where you made mistakes. And some women just aren't ready to do that. You know what I mean? So, okay, let me continue. Shout out to Malarkey 5. It's always so good to see you. I see. Please like, share, subscribe, and donate to your favorite content creators. They put in the work. Let's show them we appreciate what they do. Shout out to you, Malarkey. It's always good to see you from the UK. It says Cynthia G downplays marriage because it's rap for her in that department. I do think that there are definitely, I talked about this in a previous video, where I do think there are women out there who they downplay it because they deep down inside don't believe they'll ever be able to get married, and misery loves company. So if you ain't gonna get married, then ain't nobody else gonna get married, because that's gonna make you feel validated in your struggle. Because like, if you're the only one not married and everybody else is married, then you feel really bad about it. So I mean, that's just my opinion. Let me continue. Okay, guys, if you're here, hit that like button. I see 240 watchers. So let's get some more likes, y'all. Don't be shy. I know some of y'all hate watching, so I know that happens. But yeah, definitely hit that like button, y'all. Likes are free. Let's continue.
Essentially, what they're doing is Black men are running around displaying their disloyalty. They're publicly displaying how they prefer any woman other than a Black woman.
Got it. Justin, I'm going to give you the last word real quick here before we continue this conversation. I'm loving it.
It is. Okay, to say that Black men are choosing Black women and that Black men are holding Black women hostage, and what ability do they have to hold Black women hostage, right? If we're going to look at other men and say, okay, this is the answer, how many of them are saying, would you be my wife? Will you marry me? And so there's a relatively small percentage, especially when it comes to white men, that are actually dating outside their race as well.
This is how Black men hold Black women hostage. This right here, by basically moving into the narrative that no one.
Okay, so Black men hold Black women hostage by sharing their truth. Because to his point, it's like, even if you want to say you're holding them hostage by proposing to them, even if that's the argument you want to make, women still have to accept the proposal. They still have to decide to, accept the ring, plan the wedding date, get the dress, sign the wedding certificate, all that. They still have to be active participants. So again, what's interesting about the framing, how Black women are somehow the victims. As if we're not grown adults with free will and our own minds and our own thoughts and our own abilities to reason and to make decisions of our own. It's almost quite patronizing, as if like we're like these kids that have no control and the big Black boogeyman has all of the control and he is oppressing us. Like, do y'all see the language in this? Like, Black women literally, they have no control of power. Yet we are strong, independent, divine goddesses, but we have no power or control over whether or not we want to date or marry. Like, am I crazy? Like, the victim's mentality to me is so deep, and it's so interesting to me how it continues to shift. And like I said, somebody proposing to you is not you being held hostage. You could say no. I mean, that happens. Y'all probably seen viral videos of dudes proposing and females being like, no, I don't like the way you proposed. So women have done it plenty of times. Let me continue. Let's continue. Y'all hit that like button. Also show support to the show. If you would like to do so, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay. As always, I'll be sure to acknowledge all super chats. Y'all hit that like button. Likes are free. I see I got over 236 people here. I need some more likes. So let's keep it going.
I want you.
Cynthia, I need you to hold that thought. Yes, it's a hot topic, and we've got a lot more of it. Should Black women be dating outside their race? We will continue on Fox Soul TV. Welcome back. I'm Dominique DePrima, filling in for Tammi Mack on Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. As you can see, it is on, and our topic today is a time for Black women to date outside their race. I want to go right to Dr. Cheryl Giudice. It got a little heated here. This is such a controversial topic. Why is it so emotional? And balance us, center us, if you would, Dr. Giudice.
Well, I hope I can be of help here. First of all, the main reason it's such an incendiary topic really goes back to racism. In this country, there right now, and of course it's been that way for some time, there are far more Black women than there are Black men. So rather than us engage in a conversation, we're mad at each other, I think we need to recognize that the real source of our anger is racism in this country. And from age 16 forward, Black women begin to outnumber men. And the same thing has not happened to whites to around age 32. So what that means is that for Black women, we are the only group of women in the country that can't take for granted that if we wish to marry and have children with a Black man, that there will be one available to us, irrespective of any other condition we might want to talk about that this man brings to the table. The second thing is, I must say that in all the 20 plus years that I have been researching this topic, I have absolutely nothing that I can say that would differ Black men from any other group of men in terms of how they select people to date. All Black men are doing in terms of who they try to date is what every other group of men I know do. They do the same identical thing. For Black men, immediately I noticed people start talking about we have different additional problems. Yes, you do. because of racism in the country. You don't have the same opportunities as other groups of men. But that's no reason for us to put each other down. We all recognize what we are going through. In terms of statistics, if you look at the year 2013, of those Black men that were married, only 25% married outside the race. And quite frankly, I am happy to report that during that same time period, looks like I'm getting a problem with my machine. Anyway, during that same time period, there were only 12% of Black women that were married outside of the race.
Yeah,
and that tells us.
I just want to interject here.
So, I mean, she basically kind of just tries to bring it back to like what's happening data wise. It's like, obviously we can't act like racism has not impacted the Black community, especially when it comes to how men and women interact. And she is somebody, I think it's the woman over here that was doing some of the research. I think she's been researching marriage, interracial marriage, or just interracial relationships in general for the last couple of decades. So it's like, you can't live in America and act like there has not been some impact, be it psychological, be it physical, economic, all the above. When you think about, slavery, then you think about Reconstruction, then you think about Jim Crow, then you think about gentrification, all these things that have systematically impacted Black communities. Of course, that is going to impact how men and women relate. Because again, when there's socioeconomic pressure on individuals, relationships to shatter in general. This is why even when you look at poor communities, poor all white communities, poor Black communities, poor predominantly Hispanic communities, they all tend to have similar rates of homicide. They tend to have similar rates of DV, different things like that, because when people are put in hard socioeconomic positions, it doesn't matter their ethnicity, relationships crumble. So basically that's kind of what she's trying to say. It's like, look, we're over here trying to blame men or women. Like, can we not forget the fact that can we not forget our history, the history of Black folks in America, and try to have a little bit more empathy when we are engaging with one another? So that's, basically what she was trying to do. Shout out to Herc Irwin with the 5. I see Cynthia G comes from a broken home and is admitted traumatized foster child. In the early 90s, her and her siblings were homeless. I was not aware of that. Because I was not aware of that. I know she had mentioned, her dad, obviously, I think had issues with drugs. I think that's common knowledge. And from what I understand, she's had her mom, I think, come on in one of her lives, or some of her siblings. I didn't see that one personally, but I think spoke with a member of mine who, had seen some of the interviews. So yeah, I'm not fairly familiar with the details of her personal life, so I don't want to project, but based upon some of the things that she has expressed and just based upon the way that she acts, I think everybody can assume that she's had some rather traumatizing experiences with Black men. Like, that's pretty clear. Without even need to know all the details, it is very obvious she's been hurt. So let me continue.
That, I know what the statistics show, and we can talk about numbers. I just don't appreciate the scarcity mentality where it's like we have to fight over these Black men.
Right.
What's yours is for you is for you, and what's not for you is not for you. I take that from a spiritual perspective. You only need one. You don't need a percentage. You don't need thousands. You don't need hundreds.
But here's the question that I want to pose. How does it benefit Black women to continue to be dedicated to Black men? Because we can blame it on racism, and racism is a part of the problem. But the research that I looked at, some of yours, Cheryl, it's not just mentioning racism, it's mentioning Black men not wanting to educate themselves, and Black men not having the economic wherewithal to where they can actually support a family.
Cynthia G, so you seem to...
Okay, so first of all, this education in general, men are not enrolling in education in general across the board, across ethnicities, nearly as much as they were before, because of multiple reasons, not just the economy. Education has become incredibly feminist, and there's a lot of guys who just don't vibe with that. And quite frankly, there are jobs that men can take today where they can make 6 figures and make good money and not need to have thousands upon thousands of dollars of debt. There's trade, skills, things like that. So men in general, college enrollment has gone down in general for men Now, yes, while Black women do have more degrees, they still don't have more income. If you do a comparison of Black men and Black women, those employed, working, Black women by and large still have more income, make more money, even with there being less education. And there's different reasons for this, but y'all, that is what's going on. So also there are more Black men in college than in prison. So it's like, okay, that's invalid. And then the whole socioeconomic point that she made, again, if we want to say that Black men are so poor, okay, Black women are poorer because Black women make less money than Black men. I mean, I broke this down in so many of my videos, like stats, resources. You know, if you look at the U.S. Bureau, Census Bureau, like it's all out there. So all those points are invalid. I don't know. It's invalid. But let's continue.
To be blaming the Black men for their conditions. I think when we talk about racism, we're talking about lesser opportunity to educate themselves.
That part.
Being the first one in the family to try to go to college,
Sheila.
maybe not having the foundational skills to educate themselves based on their schools. But let's pivot back to women because this
Black women are going.
let's pivot back to women because this is about us and our choices. Why is it that you think Black women have so much trouble dating in this country? What is that about? Spread the love here a little bit. Let's go to Janet Brooks for a moment, and then Cynthia G, you can chime back in.
And just realizing that Black women are able to maneuver better in our racist system than Black men. I've worked in corporate America and I've seen what happens to educated Black men that may have 3 or 4 degrees. They're only going to allow them to get to a certain point because they don't want to compete. It's not that I say Black men are lazy. Yes, they have not been responsible in many areas, but we can't keep going against each other. I believe that we need Black men. We are Black people. We live in a very racist society. And as it was said earlier, we understand each other. We share a culture. We share a history in this country that no one else shares. Why would we not fight to stay together? It's our counterparts. Without a Black man, there is no Black race.
Cynthia G, go ahead. Why is it?
Look, this is why I say we live in a Black man worshiping culture, because last I checked, Black men weren't giving birth to anybody. Black women were. So we are quite fine without Black men.
You still need a sperm.
Yeah, that's not true. I mean, I'm sure a lot of y'all listeners are aware of how children are impacted when you remove fathers from the home. But I mean, just if you aren't aware, for example, the overwhelming majority of people in prison today grew up in single parent households. Not to mention that usually, like men, for example, children in general usually have it harder to regulate themselves emotionally. Like, and there's a tons of reports on how psychologically children who are growing up in single parent households do not fare very well. Not to mention, Black women are not doing well financially. I just talked about this a few minutes ago. How the report came out and said that Black women are have the highest rate of evictions. So can we be honest about the fact that I think it's about 10% of Black women who have higher education? Like, now, because college enrollment is different than completing a degree, completing a master's, a PhD. Just because you start college, maybe pay money to get into courses, doesn't mean you complete it. So I think it's like 10%, or don't quote me on that. I'd have to go back and double check. I have that somewhere in another video of mine. But either way, it's a small minority of Black women who have higher education. Very small minority. So the overwhelming majority of Black women are not necessarily killing it like that. Like, they're not boss babing it up like that. And if you do decide to live single, no shade. Like I said, I have no issue with women who actively decide, like, look, I don't want to be married. Like, you can't force anybody. And I don't think all women are marriage material, because not everybody has a desire and is a race to do so. But if you take that route and you have kids, you're not setting yourself up for success. You are setting yourself up for a harder life, for a harder road. You're setting yourself up to have harder financial incomes. You're setting yourself up to be more at risk for, evictions and homelessness and different financial issues that disproportionately impact single parents, especially single, women, Black women with kids. So, like, again, this is the kind of stuff that we got to stop the cap. We got to stop the cap. It's like, no, Just because this might be your actual lived experience, or maybe even experience with somebody you know in your family that was close to you, does not mean this is the experience of everybody. And it's very dangerous when we try to pass it off as that and go against all evidence and all history that literally shows otherwise. Shout out to R1993. It says, Black women are indoctrinated, not educated. Yeah, no, education, you know, the downside, and I'll say this to somebody who was, college educated and have, my dad's a professor. So it's like, I don't say that women shouldn't go to college. I have no issues with that. I think, there's, especially if you want to get into certain, if you want to have certain jobs or do certain things, trade, like if you want to be a doctor, you should go to college. So I'm not saying it's all bad, but unfortunately, it doesn't necessarily teach you how to think all the time. It teaches you how to, be a great worker, quite frankly, depending upon the college you go to. Now, there's some colleges where they'll say, oh, you're the leaders, but those are the elite colleges. Your average, junior college, if you go to just a good average college, they're not teaching you how to be forward thinking, how to challenge. They're not showing you different perspectives. They have a pretty set, prescribed way of looking at things, and you're not really allowed to look outside of that box. So as far as indoctrination, yes, it can be indoctrination play. I agree. Okay. Let's go. Let's continue. Yes, it says college teach you how to regurgitate. Absolutely. Guys, if you're on here, hit that like button. I see 267. I see 267 viewers. And I see, let's see how many likes we got right now. Y'all, I got 192 likes. So we can do better than that. Let's get to 200 likes, y'all. Also, if you would like to show support to the show, you can find me on Cash App, Venmo, Share, Share. As always, I'll be sure to acknowledge our super chats. Oh, okay. I just seen this comment from Andre. Is it Janiska? It says, sent you $10 for the Dusty Bandit Defense Fund. Thank you for the Dusty Bandit for the Dusty Bandit Defense Fund. I appreciate you. Also, shout out to you, Darren, with the 20 on the Cash App. I appreciate you. Again, guys, hit that like button and let's continue. Let us continue.
That's fine, but we can walk into a sperm bank and buy that. It's not hard.
You still need a father.
Right.
You still need a dad.
Sperm, you still need a
right.
We do need a father. I was trying to finish what I was saying. We do need fathers, but Black men, obviously, you can look at the data, are not interested by and large in fatherhood.
Not true. The CDC came out a few years ago and said that Black men actually were the most involved fathers. I did a video on this. The CDC. It looked at how willing they were, I think, to engage with bedtime, with helping with school, picking them up, changing them, giving them baths. Black men, compared to all the other races of men, were actually the most involved. Now, there can be, there's different reasons as to why. That could be a whole other argument, but that's actually not true. This is the CDC that came out with this report, not like Joe Blow's blog. You know what I mean? Some random dude. CDC. So stop. That's not true. Not true.
And not only does this play out in the Black community, it also plays out in other communities.
And where you're only talking about African Americans, because if you go global with Black men, the pictures change.
That too. Absolutely.
Well, here's the thing, if I could finish what I'm saying. The reality is dating Black men does not benefit Black women. So we can talk about togetherness. We can talk about how we shouldn't attack each other. I'm trying to figure out what's best for Black women.
You, but it benefits plenty of Black women. It benefited how? What we have happy lives, good relationships, we have children.
Well, the divorce rate is 3 times higher than the marriage rate. So the divorce rate is saying that these women are not happy in these relationships. You do not have a divorce rate, and it's only in the Black community where the divorce rate is 3 times higher.
We have a lot of other obstacles, like back to racism.
Yeah, but last I checked, happily married people don't get divorced. So I think we should.
Right, but what are the conditions that are leading to those divorces? It's interesting that we've turned this conversation into just a conversation about condemning Black men, which seems to alienate our affections from each other.
They should be condemned.
Rather than focusing on what's best for Black women. What?
Yeah, I'm laughing because she's like, they should be condemned. Yeah, I am making it all about Black men. This is supposed to be a conversation that focuses on the actions of Black women and how they should expand their dating and mating, what they should do, and somehow this becomes a conversation about why you should blame black men. But she was honest about it. I can appreciate the honesty. Shout out to Joe Average Brother. It says Whiskey Tango Foxtrot Dominique De Prima drove Black Talk Radio into the ground. Front page on radio station KGLH is no more. KBLA doesn't come close. I'm not. I think you are referring to the host. I'm not really familiar with her. This is my first time interacting with her. So yes, but I do appreciate the support. Okay, let me continue. Let's continue, y'all.
Do we want? But I do want to let Justin Blue jump in because there's been a lot of things said about that, and maybe you want to respond.
Right. There's a lot that I would like to say. First, when we go into finances and economics, when there was a change from an industrial economy going more into office space, professional space, it's been studies have shown that many of the white men who hired people, they felt far more comfortable hiring white women than hiring black men in those environments. And there's so many other things such as welfare. You can't have a man inside the household if you want to be able to live in this location. There's so school prison pipeline. When you go into the largest prison system in the history of mankind, and black men being the bulk in there, it's so much that we can get into systemically. But I would actually like to pose this other question: if black men aren't going to treat you well, historically speaking, what other races of men have treated black women well? We definitely can't say white men have a great track record of treating black women well.
Right.
Where are we going to Asian men? Is that where we're going? So if you're saying that black men are doing you wrong, then point to the other groups. We're not talking about just maybe one or two, but we're talking about in large.
Right. That's my whole point. So if black men are horrible, okay, granted, well, who's going to treat us better as a collective? Because like I said, while everybody's over here, black women, are very vocal. I'm not saying this is everybody, but it's very vocal about these Eurocentric beauty standards that oppress us. Well, who created the Eurocentric beauty standards? Y'all think it was black men? Y'all think black folks got together and sat down and created Eurocentric beauty standards to live by? Who are you even talking about? The Crown Act? Who passed that? So that you could wear your own hair texture, so that you wouldn't be discriminated against? And that's still happening, by the way. But who passed that? So it's this is why these conversations to me are very disingenuous, because it overlooks the cultural dynamics that are happening today. Yes, there are lovely interracial couples that I know very, very well. There are men out there who are open to dating and marrying black women. Yes, that happens. But we can't act like this is just everybody. And we can't overlook the fact that you got theories like the Great Replacement going on today. You have hate crimes happening. You got some people out there who are very vocal about the fact that not only do they not like integration, they don't want to be integrated anymore. Y'all seen the recent video of that black chick that went into an all-white bar and they're like, "Can you leave? Get out." So not everybody is happy about integration. Not everybody is happy about the idea of mixing. Not everybody is. So that's what I'm saying. Let's just be honest, y'all. And you can't overlook the history of this nation. And you can't do that seriously and come to these conclusions. You literally can't complain about Eurocentric beauty standards and colorism and then look at black men as the culprit. They didn't create the color, they didn't create the colorism system. It's so crazy. So shout out to the ghost watching. Let's shout out to KW Dawn 7. It says Cynthia G is a puppet on a string. She wasn't singing the tune 4 or 5 years ago. It was interesting because I did have the chance to watch a video of hers about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was like 180-degree turnaround. So I don't know what happens. Unfortunately, this kind of rhetoric gets paid or gets views. So I don't know if it's a pay thing. I don't know if she really believes it. I don't know if it's both. I don't know. But if you go back farther enough, you'll hear her talk this way, but towards white men. You'll hear her go in on white men. So it's how did you make a 180-degree turnaround? That is I don't know. It's interesting. So let's
but to be the people's advocate here, Justin, are you generalizing black men? Are you generalizing white men? Similar to what I was saying to Cynthia G, shouldn't we be looking at our own relationships rather than painting with broad strokes?
100%, but I'm only generalizing because we stepped into a generalized conversation.
Right.
Specific as far as individuals, yes, of course. You may find this amazing white man that is the amazing Asian man that is perfect for you, amazing Indian man that is perfect for you. But as far as making a statement, as far as suggesting that Black women should just give up on Black men, that's extremely dangerous. And so I have to step in here. And one thing that I would like to challenge you with is, whoever you date, you're going to have, if you have children and you have a son, he's going to be a Black man. So you can't preach throwing Black men away and giving up on Black men and saying that Black men can't be great to a Black woman, when biologically speaking, if you push out a male, it's going to be a Black male.
Right.
So you got to just be careful with that.
Right.
And sadly, many of our Black males are raised by Black women.
Oh, I thought it was my turn to go.
Right.
The reason why many Black men are
Right.
raised by Black women is because despite the fact that they have a father, which you both just acknowledge, we need the man in order to create a baby, those men are choosing to walk off.
Again, you can't say that. You can't really say that definitively unless that was your experience. I can't say that. My dad didn't walk off. I know plenty of Black women in my own life, but that was not their story. I actually know some who they actually love their father and they're like their best friend. So it's like, I can look at somebody, I can look at a situation and say, yeah, that happens. That definitely happens. I know white women who have been impacted that way, or their dad walked off and left them, or they were raised by their single mother. Hispanic woman, like this stuff doesn't just happen in a silo. It's like, it's not just all Black men are horrible and everybody else is great. Like that's not a reality. Stats don't bear that out. What it does show, if we really want to go there, is that you have Black women who are procreating with a small percentage of men who are creating a whole lot of babies that they can't take care of. That's what you're looking at. But like I said, that is not the collective of Black men. That is a small minority. And then now we got to get into, why are we doing that? Marry before you carry. Why are you choosing to procreate with a man before you marry him? And then if you are procreating with a man, why are you doing with a dude that already has other baby mamas? Like, these are the kinds of conversations that we conveniently overlook. And then we blame Black men for the bad mistakes we make. And it's really disingenuous. So no, nobody can say that who's actually had a different experience. Like I said, these conversations to me, when they're so definitive and they're so quick to paint a broad stroke over a collective of men, it's like, tell yourself. You are telling yourself. Because if you had a different experience, then you wouldn't be saying these things. And you couldn't say these things. At best, you could say, wow, there are some bad dudes out there, but there are some good ones because I've experienced that, or because I've seen people experience that. So again, you telling yourself when all of your experiences are toxic, you're telling on yourself, you're telling on your environment, you're telling on where you've been or maybe where you are staying. And like I said, that's sad. That is sad. Let me see. Shout out to Mo List 499. It says, imagine blaming Black men as a whole for your own poor decisions and a small subset of Black men. Yeah, that's crazy. And nobody is saying that all Black men are perfect. There are Black men out there who are toxic, just like there are Black men out there who are toxic. But what's even more toxic is the inability to be honest about your own mistakes. That's even more toxic. So y'all, if you're on here, hit that like button, hit the like button. If you like to show support to the show, you can find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. As always, I will be sure to acknowledge all super chats and Cash Apps. Let's continue.
That's why you're being
Leave it
raised
right
by
there.
your
We'll continue
religion.
this conversation on the other side. It's Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack on Fox Soul TV. Welcome back to Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack. I'm Dominique DeFrima, in for Tammi Mack. According to the Brookings Institute data, Black men are less likely than Black women to have completed a high school and 50% less likely to have attended a four-year college. This brings up the conversation that we've been having on the show today about what role that plays in the dynamics of relationships between Black men and Black women. Controversial relationship expert Kevin Samuels, who passed away in April, told women maybe it's time to lower our standards. He once told a woman, women like you die alone, straight up because you think you're better than the men you qualify for.
Wow.
Dr. Cheryl Giudice, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I have two perspectives. Number one, far more Black women achieve higher education credentials than do Black men.
Yeah.
And that even starts at earlier years, from high school on forward, more Black women continue forward. But having said that, I think you have to be very careful where you're saying men have to be comparably as educated. Because even though I have a PhD, as my husband used to say, when the refrigerator goes out, what good does that do?
Mhm.
And plenty of men do get technical training and skills. I had the privilege many years ago of being on the Howard University campus where I met a woman who'd been married 40 plus years. She was a department chairman. Her husband was the head custodian. These people have been married, the children, grandchildren, nothing seemed to interrupt their relationship. So essentially what I think the basic ingredient is in all these relationships is love.
Cynthia G,
Yeah.
want to let you finish your thought here. Is there a shortage of Black men, and are other men the solution? Are we even attracted to men of other races?
I think largely Black women are not attracted to other groups of men, and I think it's for one of the same reasons that I said before. And actually, Jonathan showed that on this panel. The deep level of shaming and ostracizing Black women who even think about it, like this whole notion of, well, who are you going to go to? Are white men going to treat you better?
Yeah, that's not shaming. That's just it's not. I think we have to not conflate shaming with just acknowledging reality. It's because no one is trying to keep the collective, well, at least not here. I'm not trying to keep anybody from living their best life or choosing their best options. There's like, why would I do that? Who would want to do that? I think what happens though, and why there will be so much pushback to some of this kind of rhetoric is because it's dishonest. That's it. It's like, it's just flat out dishonest. So you can sit here all you want and try to blame a particular people group and then put another one on the pedestal. But the results are what they are. And that, like I said, that's why, people will push back. That's why I will say, okay, if we want to talk about interracial dating and dating and all different stuff, fine. Can we also talk about race? Can we not act like that doesn't exist and there aren't cultural and racial differences and there also aren't cultural and racial tensions today? Can we be honest? So no, that's not shaming. Trying to have a honest conversation is not shaming. Okay. Let's continue.
That's not your concern as a Black man. Black women should open up their options and go to any race of men, whoever's going to give them.
Their options have been open since the options have been open for decades. The options have, y'all know the amount, I can just think of the amount of television shows I call coming up, nighttime specials, where are all the good Black men, Black women talking about why they wanted to date and marry out. What's that one movie I remember watching as a kid? Something New. There's been plenty of movies out there. There's been plenty. I mentioned Black female activists, Black female actresses, people that we love. Everyone from Maya Angelou, right? Serena Williams, Diana Ross, even Leo Horne, different people of different eras, Angela Davis, Black women from different eras, some of them entertainers, some of them in civil rights era, fighting for the power and the freedom of Black people with white partners, with white men on their side. So no, I don't think you can accurately say that this whole culture exists where it's like Black women have been suppressed and they have never been able to go to Black men because they've never been able to go to white men because Black men have been holding them hostage. That's not true. You have scores and scores of evidence of years of decades of women doing that, not only celebrities, but you even have you got historical evidence of Black women in the Jim Crow South sleeping with KKK members. And let's not forget the Daughters of the Trade, right? Which was Black elite women who sold out their own people and collaborated with Europeans to get wealth and resources through interracial marriage. Let's not act like that didn't exist. So no, I don't buy the fact that Black women they're so shamed that they have never thought about expanding their options. History does not agree with that analysis. Let's continue.
The best deal, because at the end of the day, we can pretend like this is one of the system, but at the end, Black women are in the system too. We face racism as well, and not only do we face racism, we face gender discrimination. This is a male-driven society, so
if you face racism, okay, let's just assume. Okay, so based upon your logic, if you face racism, why are you over here trying to tell Black women that their best option is dating out? Does that make any sense? She literally just said, okay, we face racism. We face this patriarchal system. So we need to go, marry white men? Like, based upon her own logic, that don't make no sense. Like, how are you complaining about racism and then you're saying that you need to date out? Like, am I crazy? Like, I'm so confused. I'm so confused, y'all. I'm so confused. Where is the logic in that? To me, it's just kind of like we're talking in circles because it's not an honest conversation. It's not. To me, it is not honest, y'all. Hit that like button if you're here. Show support to the show. Show support to the show, y'all. Wait, did I? Yeah. Let me see. Did I get a? Wait. Did I get a super chat? I missed. I'm not sure. Okay. Let's continue, guys. We're getting to the end of this.
Men have privilege and advantage above Black women, but have not used it to their benefit.
Do you
Nobody's
think,
stopping Black.
but Black women also shame Black men who get outside the race. I mean, I think that's a two-way street. Maybe it's not as prevalent, but it certainly happens.
Yeah, we don't shame them for dating outside of their race because most Black women are actually more accepting of Black men dating outside of their race than they are of Black women doing it. Our issue is that when Black men choose to date out, they demean and degrade us as Black women based solely on our Blackness. And this is something that Black women do not do. Black women don't talk about Black men's skin tone or their hair texture.
Yeah, okay. We already know this is a lie. We all know, y'all, this cap. I don't even need to debunk this. This is cap. Nobody who has been Black in America for any length of time believes any of that. That's all cap. So let's just continue. It's like not even worth
debunking. I don't know that that's fair, but what do you say, Janet? Fair. Janet Brooks, your thoughts?
I'm sorry, I just got caught in conversation.
Right. Both
we have to love ourselves enough to love each other. And being with a Black man is not a deal. It is you want a relationship with a man that you have roots with. And I do agree that older women have kind of taught younger women that you need to stay, you need to do these things. But what we need to do is give our young women the tools to learn about themselves, to understand themselves. As I said, we have to work on ourselves first instead of looking outward. And we do it to each other. It's not just Black men looking down on Black women. Black women, I don't want a dark man. I don't want a kinky hair. I want to have good hair. You know, we are all this. So why does this happen within our race? Racism. We are pitted against each other. We always have, and now we're buying into it. When you start tearing down your counterpart, as no other race does. That's a problem.
You know what? I mean, actually, I would argue with that. I married a Black Cuban, and they definitely have shadism and white supremacy within the Latinx community. But let's talk about that, Justin Blue. This shadism, the standards of beauty that are put forth, which do not advantage the Black woman, and how much that can impact Black men turning away from us.
It can impact both Black men turning away from Black women and Black women turning away from Black men. You know, we're just getting to, I guess, a term where being dark is in style now. And I hate to use in style, but for a long time, light skin was okay. Oh, light skin man, that was the thing that's popping out.
We always had Morris Chestnut. I mean, you know, we always left him.
Black women, for the most part, prefer dark-skinned Black men. They are the preference in the community. So
I don't. You know, I'm gonna say. I mean, at least from what I remember growing up, I remember like mixed was in. Back when I was coming up, it was like you wanted the light-skinned dude with green eyes, with the good hair, like. So, and I don't know, maybe this is this area. I mean, this stuff may change by environment or may change by zip code, but I'm like, when I was coming up, dark skin was not in. You wanted your man to have good hair, to have, you know, pretty green eyes or light eyes, like, and all the dudes that fit that mold, those are the dudes that was getting women. So, I mean, it might be dark skin isn't now, but back when I was coming up, it wasn't like that. But I know this is like a constant debate because it's like dark skin, light skin kind of goes in and out of style. This is what I've heard from men. But yeah, so I don't know that I believe that it's always been that Black men have dark skinned Black men have been the prep. That's not true. It's not true. Like, even if you understand anything about, like, you know, the paper bag test and all these different things, the way that lighter skinned Black people were treated. I mean, that's why you got the beef now. That's why you got beef now with Black women who look at light-skinned women a certain way, because there's history behind that. You know, the field Negro versus the house Negro. Like, there's actual history behind this stuff. So we can't just say this stuff without looking at it within context. What's going on, Better You? It says, wow, the last 5 minutes of Cynthia G been more cap than a lit story. You ain't lying about that. Okay, guys, so we're about an hour and a half in. I'm gonna do a little break, y'all. Let's see where we're at. Let's try to get those likes up, you guys. I want to see some more likes. Also, shout out to KW Don 7 with the 5. I see Cynthia G doesn't shame black men who date out, but she has a whole series of videos called Who They Choose. Y'all, the gaslighting is so okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do a little quick break. Y'all hit that like button. If you haven't already, share this. Also show support to the show. Find me on Cash App or Venmo Shay Sade. Support your favorite content creators. As always, I will be sure to acknowledge all super chats. And then we will get back to it. Wrong one. Commercial break. Okay, so let's get back to it. Let's see what we got. Shout out to Norman Henderson. Let's see what we have here. Says, oh, well, hope a day will come when we will be beyond preference of hue, the preferred one that is. I hear you. Okay, so let's continue. What's going on, Game Jammer? Okay, let's continue, y'all, with the conversation. So, y'all, okay, first off, we're about halfway there. If I continue to get some full support, then I will continue this to the end. And then, if not, then I'll just kind of wrap this up soon because I'm getting kind of hungry. So let's see, y'all. If you want me to continue with this, you guys show the support. Like I said, hit that like button. Again, Cash Apps are open, Super Chats, all of that. And yeah, I know I got quite a bit of hate watchers on here today, but that's okay. That's okay.
understand this notion about Black women having a problem with Black men's skin and
Well, I think
no.
it does go in and out of style. I mean, comedians always joke about it. Like skin is in. Go ahead, Justin. Finish your point.
We're systemically affected by all of these things. It comes down to who controls media. We're not the ones. Black men nor black women are controlling mainstream media in mass. When it comes down to education, who's inside the history books? Who want to be? Who do you see as being valuable? So we're all being brainwashed at times.
But you know what, Justin? Black men do control their own stand-up comedy, and there's always jokes about women's weaves and Black women's bodies, policing our hair, policing our butts, and like I don't know that that's really super helpful. Black women aren't the only one with weaves and Brazilian butt lifts.
But do black comedians not make jokes about white women? And then also similar to
disparaging their looks? No,
no, they don't. It's very disingenuous. But
similar to music industry, you may have an artist that speaks about killing one another, but there's a lot of artists who talk about great things and helping and building the community. But who gets on the radio? Who gets on the television? And so, yes, there are those who are going to have a negative impact and have the negative things to say, but even more so, who's putting the dollars behind it to say, okay, this is what we want to put the spotlight on. It's much bigger than just us.
Dr. Cheryl Giudice, you're a sociologist. How does this?
So no, he's making some good points that, like, yeah, we can talk about representation. We can talk about the way, let me see this on, the way Black men, Black women are represented online in the media, and it's not good. It's not good. I think nobody can really disagree with that. By and large, it's not really good. But to his earlier point, Black folks don't own media like that. Like, we're not the ones really calling the shots. At best, you were the ones participating in, different movies, taking different roles, maybe co-writing this and there. But it's like the control of how Black people are represented in media that's not controlled by Black folks. So to me, I think it's a little ignorant, quite frankly, to blame Black men or Black women for the representation of media when we don't control it. Now, yeah, we can maybe look at people who take on certain roles and collaborators and say, okay, why do you do that? But then even still, there has to be a market for it. So it's a much deeper conversation. It really is. But at the end of the day, yeah, Black men don't control media like that. I mean, this is why you do have different independent, media creators, content creators who are coming out and saying, okay, look, we're tired of how we're presented. We're tired of the message happening. So let's try to do something alternative. And this is why I do think that you should support independent content creators, independent filmmakers, whatever. But like I said, we don't own it. So this is another reason why I say you shouldn't try to put too much emphasis. You shouldn't draw your self-worth from media. You shouldn't even draw your conclusions about history and stuff from media, because we're not controlling that message. It's very important to get that in your brain. So shout out. I did see some love come through. Shout out to Grin with the $4.99. It says, keep it moving, Shay. Let the hate motivate. Shout out to Witch Doctor 9.99. It says, Black men and Black women that want to date out, stop talking about it and be about it. It's tired at this point, period. Now I hear you on that. This will always be I think this is always going to be a trending topic, at least for the next God knows how long. It just is. I don't know why, but it's just one of those things that really gets people fired up. You know what I mean? But I agree. It's like at a certain point, if you're really about something, you're just going to do it. You ain't going to waste your time talking about it every 15 seconds. You're just going to live it. You know what I mean? So support people who support us. Great Black love matter. Shout out to you, C Iron Addict. And then shout out to Game Dreamer with the 10 on the super sticker. Shout out to you. I appreciate the support. Okay, guys, if you're here, hit that like button and let us continue. We're getting somewhere.
Imaging of Black women and the imaging of the relationships between Black men and Black women. How is it impacting our actual real life relationships?
Well, I'll probably start a whole nother controversial conversation. I say the root of this is low self-esteem. When you look at everything in this society from the very beginning has privileged whiteness in any way, shape, or form. So consequently, if you don't meet those standards, what winds up happening is that you are not put on the same pedestal as white women are. So as a result, I feel that many Black women have internalized these issues, and as a result, do suffer from low self-esteem.
Whoa, she hit on some bars. She dropped some bars. I could not agree more with her analysis. I think there are a ton of women who suffer with low self-esteem. We can see this based upon sometimes the way that we treat ourselves, the way we present ourselves, the different partners that we choose. Sometimes this stuff can even be, it's not even conscious, it's like subconscious. But of course, if you live in a society where you get the message that everything but you is beautiful, or everything more closely related to this is beautiful, you know what I mean? Like, of course, you're going to internalize that when you look at the history, understand the history of this nation, especially if you don't have a strong understanding of your cultural roots, a strong spiritual identity. You don't come from a strong family, which a lot of Black women, a lot of Black folks, period, don't. So it's like there are all these little different broken sectors that could impact women in their self-esteem. So like, I completely agree that there are a lot of women out there who do suffer with low self-esteem. If that wasn't the case, then colorism wouldn't be such a big hot topic for women. Colorism wouldn't constantly come up. Texturism wouldn't constantly come up. These different isms that we as women, Black women, say oppress us would not be they wouldn't bother us as much, because we would feel good about ourselves. So we would be like, okay, like, it's not an ism. If you love yourself, if you love who you are, if you love about, everything about yourself, you don't necessarily need other things or other people to validate it. You're more content with it. You know what I mean? So, I do think that what she said was completely spot on. That, there's a lot of Black men, and Black men too. I'm not saying that Black men are following this also. I'm not saying this is just Black women. So this is something that impacts both men and women, because we both live in this nation, and there is a history in this nation that has not been the most ingratiating, that has been quite brutal to Black folks. So of course there's going to be ramifications for that. That's not surprising. Okay, so let's continue.
Go back so many years ago, I think it's the 1960s, when there was this doll study that was done. And the psychologists discovered that children, young Black girls as young as 4 or 5 years old, when asked to choose a doll that they thought was pretty or the most desirable, the first thing they did was choose the white doll. And that's recognizing that, of course, that they did not look like the white doll, and they would get very upset. But of course, some people later said that that's because there weren't that many Black dolls available for young girls to play with, and they tried to redo the study later on. Later on, when the study was redone, still there was a decided preference for the white dolls, even among the Black females.
And you know what? I don't know if you guys saw, this was actually a recent video that went viral of a woman, and she was like, I think she said like, it was like a Dominican woman, and she was like, Dominican grandmas be like this. And then it was like, you see this dark-skinned little girl with her grandma, and she's playing with this doll, and then the grandma goes and like pushes the dark-skinned doll away and brings her white doll. And then the little girl starts reaching for the Black doll, and the grandma's like, no, take this white doll. And so there's, like I said, it kind of gets deep, and there are levels to this stuff. But like I said, men and women have it, and sometimes men and women pass it on. Now, you can change it. Like, you don't always have to do that. And I'm not saying this is everybody in the Black community. But what I'm saying is that what she described certainly does exist. And some of this behavior is taught. Some of this behavior is emulated. And then some of this behavior is just a result of living in America and not having a solid sense of self to help you manage kind of walking throughout this place. So also shout out to Kevin C with the 120HNL. It says, first it was the Cocktail Queens dissing Black men and Ice Cube on Fox Soul, and now they've added Cynthia G. Fox Soul is crap media. Yeah, I've been a little disappointed lately with, honestly, I never really watched Fox Soul like that. So I can't speak for their past, but like the things that I have seen lately, I'm just like, who would do that? Like, this is supposed to be for the culture. Like, this is the worst thing you could do, but they're probably just trying to get views. So, it is what it is. Also, what did I see? Let me see. I saw another one here. Also, what is also isn't really, because we can all talk about the times Black men said colorist things online, they don't ever really bring up the black men who like beef up black women. Like, who was that one actor? I can't think of his name. That one actor who went on the Breakfast Club and was just like, I dated a white woman here. I dated a white woman before, but like honestly, my preference are black women. This is a black actor off of the. He was the king off of The Woman King. He played that character. I can't think of his name, but he was just like, yeah, actually, my preference is black women, and here's why. I don't hear women like talking about that kind of stuff. I don't hear women like celebrating that kind of stuff. I hear them complaining about if a guy's with a preference or chooses a non-black woman. Everybody hears that. But for the men who vocally say, actually, no, my preference is black women, or who just do choose women, like, you don't hear that being celebrated. So it's very much, it's not, I don't think it even shows balance. It's like focusing on all the negative, but we're not seeing also the alternative to it. And then so it could become one-sided. And it can kind of make the problem seem like it's worse than it really is. So, yeah, the Nigerian... Yeah, John Boyega. Yeah, John Boyega. I could not think of his name. I'm horrible with names sometimes. Okay, let's continue.
And I do think that's starting to change. Just real quickly here, but we'll continue the conversation on the other side. But is there a war going on in the media and especially online that we're making worse between black men and black women, Cynthia G?
Yes, there absolutely is. And I think that it's driven primarily by black men, because the reality of it is that black women are taught and conditioned a certain way. They're conditioned to see black men as...
Okay, but they're taught and conditioned by who? Let's just assume that's true. They're taught and conditioned by who? She's the one that said earlier that black men aren't involved, which, I mean, we already know that's not true, but let's just assume, let's just go there. She said black men don't want to be bothered. They're walked off. Okay, so if that's the case and all these black children are being raised by black women, then who's to blame in that scenario? So I don't understand how, no matter how you look at it, black men are to blame when, in my humble opinion, no matter how you look at it, there could be culpability in both instances, on both sides. Like, I don't get it. Or in some cases, the culpability is just, no, this is just your fault. This is black women's fault. This is your fault personally. Like, this ain't got nothing to do with the men or white supremacy or racism or black men's colorism or whatever, the system. It's just, we made bad choices. Like, that's it. And we got to take that L. So,
as more important than themselves. They're conditioned to protect black men. They're conditioned to advocate for black men. And we know this because whenever something happens to a black man, we don't see black men out there rallying and protesting. We see black women. Let us not forget that it was black women who created the Black Lives Matter movement to advocate for black men. Interesting, though, that you're on here
blaming the black man for separating us.
I mean, why would you use the Black Lives Matter movement? That's the worst example, because y'all already know what happened with that. And y'all already know what that actually ended up being. So that's kind of a bad example. And not to mention, I mean, what's his name? Dr. Hood Scholar. He came on and talked about it. He talked about how actually black men were treated in that organization and the different corruption he saw in Black Lives Matter. So no, that's not really a fair argument, but let's continue.
While separating us.
We need to be separated.
Cycle. We'll talk more about whether we need to be separated or together as we continue this conversation on Business of Being Black on Soul TV. Welcome back. It's Business of Being Black with Tammi Mack, and we are. I'm Dominique the Prima, obviously, not Tammi Mack filling in. We're talking about whether or not black women need to be dating outside their race. Before we took a break, Cynthia G said we should be separated. Justin Blue, I think you had a rebuttal to that.
It wasn't necessarily specific to we should be separated, though I disagree with us being separated, but there was a statement about just black women being present, especially when it comes to black activism related things, and black men not being there heavily. And we have to look at the system that we're actually in when making such a statement. So if we're in a system where we're dealing with mass incarceration and we're the minority within the country, but the majority of people that are locked up in prison are black men, then of course the sheer numbers in itself, we're not going to be able to be there the way that we would like to be. And there's so many other just systemic things that have impacted us. The divides, though, that we have, that's a large part of the system. Even when it comes down to certain laws and certain governmental policies, there has been intentional strategic moves to make sure that you separate the black man and separate the black woman. So when we're
what are the institutional policies that are put in place to separate black men from black women?
Welfare.
There was the
she knows this. What's the thing about it? Like I said, if you look at some of her previous videos, she's well aware. She's well aware of the different policies and the different things that have been done to impact the Black community. She's well aware of that. But this is not a logical conversation. I think we can all conclude, based upon what we've heard at this point, this is not about logic. This is all about feelings. This is all about pushing your vendetta. And this is my issue largely with the different rhetoric I have seen today on this panel, especially as it relates to Cynthia G. Just because I think her in this panel, she was, I think, largely the contrarian. Pretty much all the other ones, I think, were like not agreeing with what she had to say. But it's one thing to have a perspective, or it's one thing to have an experience, and it's another thing for your experience to now have to be painted as everybody else's experience. That's where it gets dangerous. Just because, I don't know, just because I went to college doesn't mean that I'm going to say, oh, well, therefore all Black women went to college. And all Black women, I don't know, study literature or whatever. Like, no, just because I did that does not mean that's the experience of all Black women. And that would be incorrect and invalid for me to assume that. But I'm saying this is what happens sometimes when women have bad scenarios, or just in general. Like if a person has a bad scenario, has a bad situation, and then that now has to be the fault of everybody else, that's where it becomes really toxic and dangerous. And that's where we can become agents of evil, or agents of division based upon that faulty logic. And that's where it gets really dangerous. So like I said, I don't have anything against her personally. I've never met her. So, and I don't have anything against anything personally against anyone on the panel. But I always take issue with anytime there are such blatant statements made about really the overall worth or value of people, or people are demonized, or a group of people are made to try to be humiliated just because you had a bad experience. That's very selfish, and that's very dangerous, and that's very toxic. Okay, so let's continue. I think we're getting somewhere.
Policy that Black men.
I'm sorry. You said welfare?
Sure. When you listen, I'm listening to you.
No, I mean, that's a pretty well-known kind of fact, which is that within the welfare system, women would be penalized. They would not be able to receive benefits if they had a man in the home. It's an example that's often used.
Did anybody actually read
families were separated? But
did anybody read the welfare memorandum, the man out of the home rule? Did anybody actually read it?
Let's get back to dating. That's what we came here to talk about. And,
yes,
and I know all of these issues play into that. But I want to talk about, we were talking about this war, which is online in the media between Black men and Black women, whether we're perpetuating it. Why do we have to weigh in? Why can't we let people love who they love? If they choose to be with someone outside of their ethnic group, their cultural group, or their race, just live and let live. Let people love who they love.
Right.
Janet Brooks, you said it's not a deal. Why can't we just let people be?
And I think this is the only problem I have. When you cut off and say, no, you shouldn't date Black men, that's a problem for me. Yes, you should be able to date whomever you want, but it should not be based on an absolute that you are just going to negate Black men or entirely. And we should be mindful of this whole system was set up by white men. Black women wanting to jump over there with white men. White men are the ones who help put us in this category. Black women are at the bottom of the barrel. When you look at the senators, when you look at the laws that are passed, they're to impede Black women. White women are not out there helping Black women either. We're at the bottom. No one is pulling us up. So for you to jump out of your own race and think that another race that's 3 centuries of putting their foot in your back and keeping you down is going to help you and it's going to be better on the other side, I think that's something one should think about.
Well, understood. I hesitate to always put us at the bottom. I know that we face gender and race.
It's not about, and I know she's going to try to say, I don't think anybody can really argue with what she said. I don't think anyone should argue with what she said. And it's not about like a Black woman are at the bottom as far as they are just morally bankrupt naturally, because I'll see toxic stuff online where it's just trying to paint all Black women as like beasts that are out here trying to hate men and sacrifice kids, or just like just going the far other extreme. And I'm like, no, you can't do that either, because people are individuals and they make their own decisions, and they're going to find lovely Black women who are amazing and healthy and all that, and you're going to find toxic ones. So it's like, I see the other extreme, but as far as at the bottom, yeah, again, she's speaking to the system, which is why this whole conversation is ridiculous when it's like the whole time is spent trying to bash Black men for their lack of achievements or their lack of parenting or the lack of whatever. When you look at Black women, they're not much better. And in some cases, they're actually worse. So that's why it's like the conversation is really, really dangerous and toxic and kind of unproductive when you break down points. You sound like Archie Punker. Stop. Shout out to, I did see Dolomite Tobias with the 153 on the Cash App. I appreciate you so much for the love and thank you for the support so much. That was so generous of you. Again, guys, if you're here, hit that like button. Also, if you would like to show support to the show, you can do so. Find me on Cash App or Venmo. As always, I will be sure to acknowledge all super chats. Also, you know what? I did see one come through earlier. I think that I briefly went over. Mr. Bobby Wright, I know you asked the question and I didn't understand it. So if you can clarify, let me know. Because you were saying, oh wait, have you seen the comment on the OG video, Horrid? I don't know what you're talking about, but I don't think I have because I don't understand it. So, okay, let me continue. Uncle is getting down. Yeah, my uncle. That actually is my uncle, y'all. So, okay, let's keep this going.
Discrimination, but I feel like we can pull each other up more if we are unified. Let's get away in here from Dr. Cheryl Giudice. You know, why is it so different? Why is it so different? Why does it affect every other thing? So many people put down the vice president and you know, our new Supreme Court justice for having married white men. They've accomplished so much. They've done so much for Black people. Why is this an indictment of their total personage? And why are we in their business?
Because there's just so much anger out here. That's one thing that I just see everywhere. Everybody's angry about all kinds of, you know, foolish stuff, and that's one of them. And we're always looking for some reason to put someone else down. That's not my thing. I'm always looking for ways to lift everyone up. And again, in terms of Black women and their need to date outside of the race, they need to broaden their dating pool. If they find a good Black man, great. If they find someone from any other ethnic group, that's great too. And by the way, the same thing applies to Black men. The heart knows what it wants. People need to be able to love who they love. And again, I just think we need to recognize that all of these issues that get in the way of people loving each other in the kind of times we live in, it's really just very not helpful. So that's what I believe.
Is there?
Right. And you know what? So again, I agree with her. It's like, you should be able to date and marry whoever you want. If you fall in love with somebody inside of your race, great. If you fall in love with somebody outside of your race, great. I just think the thing that I always want to add to this conversation of, if Black women are being told that they need to expand their options because there's not enough Black men, yada, yada, okay, you actually have to talk about what that's going to mean in America. You have to talk about, what does that mean to try to navigate in this space? There are certain areas, like I said, Bay Area, for example, you go to certain schools, it's really diverse, really integrated. So you see interracial relationships, you seeing interracial marriages is not as surprising. I mean, still by and large, I see people, honestly, still by and large, there's still people dating and marrying their own ethnic group, but it's going to be maybe more likely for interracial marriage because it's just so integrated. But there are a lot of parts in this country where that's still not necessarily the case. And there are still a lot of parts of this country where it's like people are having a hard time integrating. You know what I mean? And now you gotta talk not only about cultural differences, you gotta talk about class differences. Like, let's say you are a Black lower class woman and you're trying to marry a white middle class or a couple middle class men. Like, are you kidding me? You can't just like think you're just gonna waltz in and do it. Like, there's all these different dynamics that need to be talked about. You know? So that's what I'm saying. I think sometimes the solutions are made or said as if it's just so easy, but it's not. And then also there has to be the acknowledgement that just because Black women are opening up their options doesn't mean other men are trying to take them in. Cynthia G said that the system is racist. The other panelist said, she's like, well, okay, look, the system is racist. The system is discriminatory. Pretty much all the panelists on there were just like, okay, yeah, the system has been racist, or there's been discrimination, all these things going on. So it's like, in one end, you're identifying that a system has been set up against your favor, but then now you're saying that you need to go now marry into a culture that you says oppresses you. And like I said, that's where it can get like, what are we talking about? This is confusing. What does this even mean? So again, that's what I'm saying. It's like, date and marry whoever you want, but you have to be honest about what that means. That may mean for a Black woman, that may mean there's going to be times where you come up against somebody who says something racist. Or it may mean that you fall in love with somebody and he loves you and he ingratiates you and he's totally open-minded and wanting to learn about your culture and vice versa. But then you got to meet his parents, or you meet cousins, or you go to the cookout, or you go to the church group or whatever. And now somebody says ignorant. And now you're trying to figure out, how do I acclimate into this culture? So it's like, it's a lot more complicated than just, let me just go on a date. Yeah, I mean, you can get a date. Maybe you can even get somebody to sleep with you. But if really the goal is like, how do we get more of these women married, expanding their options, there needs to be an honest conversation about what that means. There needs to be an honest conversation about, okay, how could you get culturally acclimated? What do these men want? What do these men want? If you're saying you're oppressed by Eurocentric beauty standards and you now want a European man, are you willing to now lean into that? And so these are the honest conversations. Weight. Black women are the most overweight in this nation. Other cultures are not as ingratiating of the weight. I mean, you even have, this is what Black feminists talk about all the time. They say how, the fat shaming, body shaming, that is a result of white supremacy. I mean, that's the whole narrative that Black feminists have about, this hyper focus on skinniness or leanness or whatever is a result of white supremacy. So based upon that logic, you're a BBW and you're trying to date into a culture that has cultural values that really, really, really appreciates lean women. What you gonna do? So this is what I'm saying. Like, it's not just so easy. It can happen. It can happen, and no shade to anybody who does. I think, sharing of cultures can be beautiful if it's done right, and if it's not done for weird, self-hating reasons, I think it can be a beautiful thing. But I think we just should actually be honest. And that's, again, to me, that's where I think these conversations kind of can lead out. It just says, oh, just expand your options. Like it's going to be easy. And these men are just going to have all these, their open hands. Like, okay, yes, let's take you in. Yeah, we'll just take all of the Black women who can't get married. We're just going to take them in. Like, what are we even talking about? How about how to be competitive? You know what I mean? Yeah, no, I see that no, that's literally, that is the argument that, no, the argument from what I understand is that these beauty standards, or the emphasis on such small angular bodies, is a result of white supremacy. Now, we can argue whether or not that's true. I don't know that I necessarily believe that's true, fully, if I'm being honest. But I do understand that, there are certain cultural norms in America. Look, America is a Western nation. So the cultural values are based upon the West. That's not surprising. What I don't think is true, though, that Black or ancient African beauty standards were promoting obesity. That's not true. But that's a bit of a tangent. Let me continue, y'all. We are getting to the end of this thing. Let's see.
Very double standard when it comes to how people look at a Black woman dating a white man, as opposed to a white man who is married, a Black man who's married to a white woman. Is there a double standard, Cynthia G?
Absolutely. There absolutely is a double standard, because what I noticed is, even on this panel, when we talk about Black men and the fact that they go outside of their race, they promote whiteness, they specifically promote white women and biracial children. They're literally all over social media talking about they're going to start a new community with white women. We ignore these things, but then we'll flip and go talk about how Black women need to stay and continue to be dedicated to Black men who are admitting themselves, even on this panel.
I'm trying to figure out where men are saying this. I think at best she would maybe speak to some SYSBMers out there, some of them who are quite vocal about the fact that they do prefer white women, or in the words of some of them, if it ain't snowing, I ain't going. So you do have that, but there are a rather small fraction passport bros, by and large, from what I've seen, and this is even for some SYSBM men, by and large, they're going and choosing other Black women or other women of color when they leave. If they do get their passports, if they are talking about dating or going elsewhere to date or marry, they're still largely choosing Black women or at best women of color. So I don't understand exactly what she's talking about. And this would also mean that we'd have to literally overlook the entire divestment and swirl movement that literally is like all over the internet and is quite popular and is making women a ton of money. Like, this is why this argument is super disingenuous. Again, y'all, hit that like button on here, hit that like button. Also, as always, Cash Apps are open. You can find, if you would like to show support to the show, you can do so. Cash App, Venmo, Sade, and then I will acknowledge our super chats. And we're getting close, guys.
That they are so dominated that someone can come remove them from their home, lock them out of economic attainment, and basically prevent them from even being the type of men that they want to be. So if that is what it is, and the system is really that much of a burden on Black men, Black women should not be dating Black men. Or at the very least,
couldn't you just date a white guy or an Asian guy or whoever you want to date without having to indict all Black men? Couldn't you be loving and supportive of Black men and make your own relationship choices?
Right. I think Black women should navigate the dating pool knowing the circumstance in the Black community. I don't think that they should ignore that. And I think when they do choose to date a Black man or any man, they should do it with standards, expectations, and boundaries. And I think if they operate from standards, expectations, and boundaries, that's going to automatically eliminate the majority of Black men because they can't meet those standards.
So I just wonder, based upon that logic, because she's talking about how, okay, if you need to date and marry based upon whatever systems, she spent the whole time complaining about how Black men suck, right? But then she also mentioned racism. So, okay, based upon that logic, if you date a white guy, are you going to be complaining about racism all the time? Because you want to be aware, you want the woman to be aware of whatever systems or whatever is going on in the community or whatever could be impacting you. So if you're saying Black women who date Black men need to be aware and they need to basically complain about how Black men suck, does that mean that Black women who date and marry out need to be complaining about racism all the time or complain about Eurocentric beauty standards? Or need to go to white men and say, well, you suck, your ancestors suck because they did this and did that, and complain that way? Because I'm like, what I am hearing is just a reason to complain. As she said, it's like, if you want to date, why don't you go date an Asian guy or try to go date a white guy or whatever and see if they want to propose to you, and just don't talk about Black men all the time. Like, why don't you just do that? Then the answer is, okay, women need to be aware and they need to be talking about it. But that's what I'm saying. It's like, so why is the standard this for Black men, but it's not that when you're trying to date and marry out? When you yourself said, oh, this is racist. When you yourself complained about Eurocentric beauty standards and lightism and colorism and texturism and all the featureism and all the isms that, based upon your own logic, stem from racism. So you're saying all that stuff, and then you're now going to just date and marry out, and it's going to be easy. There's going to be no issues. Do you see how disingenuous that is? And to me, also, it kind of sounds weird because now it like uses non-Black men as like a cop out. It's like you kind of want to use them as like a fail safe. Like you're looking at white men as like, okay, well, I guess I can't get with a good Black man, so I might as well do this. It's like, and who wants to be your second or third choice? Do you see how weird that sounds? I don't know, y'all. Maybe I'm tripping, but.
For expectations, and Black men will tell you themselves they can't. That's why they're dedicated to getting Black women to lower their standards.
Blue, are you dedicated to making us lower our standards? Are we stereotyping Black men today, right now on this panel?
No, I'm not dedicated to making anyone lower their standards. If you have standards and you're able to find people who meet those standards, then by all means, I think that you should be with those people and pursue those people. But if you have standards and you're not able to find those people and you're not able to be with those people, then I think there's some reevaluation that needs to be done. There was a question that came up, though, about the treatment of Black men dating white women versus Black women dating white men, and it being said that Black men tend to be applauded. But I've seen drastically different, online and then firsthand in person. So my father is a Black man. I have a fair-skinned Puerto Rican stepmother. My whole entire life, I've seen him walk into rooms, and the Black women say, "Oh, you see the side eyes." Online, though, I've seen the opposite as well. Let's say Serena Williams gets married to a white man. Everybody's clapping it up. The Prince over there, the Prince, he goes and marries this. He goes and marries Black women. And I'm not trying to take away from her Blackness, but it's just like, if we're going off the one drop rule, she might have fell into the category of passing off the one drop rule. So this Black woman, everyone's throwing this parade about this very oppressive system that this woman has married into, but that's something to celebrate. And so, not to get into the oppression Olympics, but I think it's very biased to just say that Black men are getting these hand claps when I've seen the opposite.
So talk to me about, what would be healthy? Where should we be, Dr. Judice?
Where we should be in what sense?
In healing this. I mean, because it can't just be about, this constant division and policing of one another's relationships, but at the same time, there is a societal component to all of our relationships.
Absolutely. I can probably end with a statistic that people might be curious to know about. Even though the numbers are far fewer, where Black women are married to white men at the 10-year anniversary mark, most likely those marriages are still ongoing. In fact, they have a 43% likelihood of being ongoing than a white couple. At the 10-year anniversary mark for a Black man married to a white woman, there is a much higher divorce rate. So even though Black women married to white men is far fewer.
Hold that thought, Dr. Judice. Continue. Business of Black. Welcome back. It is now time for the all-time famous lightning round. This is where we give our guests 30 seconds to make their final pitch for their point of view. So let's do it, and let's start with you, Dr. Cheryl Judice.
My point of view is that there's absolutely nothing wrong whatsoever with Black men or any other men. The problem that Black women face is that there are far fewer Black men than there are Black women. So if your goal is to get married and have a family, you would be wise to broaden your dating prospects to more than Black men. So that's my one thing.
All right, let's go to Janet Brooks, Fortitude Health and Wellness. Your 30 seconds starts now.
I think that we need to be careful about absolutes and not put anyone in one category, and especially Black men. I would like to see us to be able to come to the table and grow as a race of people, because our children need it, we need it, and we need to get rid of some of the anger that we have toward each other. I think that would help us to move forward in a very positive and beneficial way for our race, not just individually.
I will say this. I agree with both of them, where it's like, if you just look at pure numbers alone, there's definitely a case to be made that you should be open to people around you. I just think the issue with the whole framing of this conversation is that, again, this assumes that a lot of Black women out there are completely closing off their options, and I just don't think that's true. There might be some out there who are doing that, but by and large, I don't think that's true, because it's like, this is an individualistic, capitalistic society. Most people are moving and operating based upon what is best for themselves and their family. It's not like how it is in other cultures where it's just like, oh, I'm doing this for the honor of my grandparents or the honor of my village or the honor of my. That's not how it works here. People move and operate based upon what benefits them personally. This is why I just don't know that I believe that there is an overwhelming collective of Black women who are saying, I'm going to choose not to marry. Now, it might be that it's like, their preference is Black men, which is normal. Most people, their preference is individuals in their own community. That's fine. But so I'm saying, I don't believe that they're so loyal, they're keeping themselves from accepting all these proposals from white men or Asian men. I don't think anybody believes that. I don't. So I agree with that. And I also agree with the other lady's point where she was basically saying where she was just like, look, can we stop infighting? Okay, can we stop infighting? Like, basically, yes, there are issues with Black women, there are issues with Black men, but we're not helping it and making it any easier when we are fighting ourselves. We should be trying to collaborate and work together and address any systematic things that could still be oppressing us, not adding fuel to the fire. So I agree with her there too. Okay, and then we're getting bound to our power round.
All right, let's go to Cynthia G.
I think that it is imperative that Black women open up their options for a multitude of reasons. The most and biggest one being that Black men are telling you themselves they cannot deliver. They're beat down by the system. They don't have the option to do anything. So therefore, Black women should go seek better men who have more to offer, because we already see at the end of the day, all women are getting the same Black man. And I don't think Black women should pay attention to the gaslighting. Do what's best for you. Just do it with standards, expectations, and boundaries.
Justin Blue, what's your life coaching for us on this topic?
It's very important that we don't fall into the divide and conquer mentality and allow it.
Okay. I mean, I think we already know that's it. I mean, this pretty much has been the whole thing over and over and over again. Blame Black men for everything. Like I said, based upon our own logic. If Black men are, let's just say, if Black men are beaten down by a racist system, okay, and you are saying that the system itself is racist. The system is, that's what you're acknowledging. Now you're telling women to go marry into a group of people who created the racist system. This is why the whole argument to me doesn't make any sense. It's faulty. It's just weird. So, I mean, it is what it is. Let's finish this one, and then we are
ourselves
done.
to
We're
become
done.
really oppression Olympics, to just fight back and forth so much that we can't love each other and that we can't make progress. Love who you want to love. Be with who you want to be with, but we don't have to put each other down in the process.
She did say that, yeah.
Absolutely. My 2 cents is just that, yes, we should love who we want to love. Be mindful of how we're being influenced, though, by the socio-political and, subconscious messages that we're getting from society, that we're actually basing our decisions on love, not opportunism, not a deal, not some kind of other peer pressure or looking for clout, but actual love, happiness. And at the same time, let's uplift each other, the wonderful, beautiful Black woman, and the greatness, the true greatness of the Black man. Let's find out what you all are up to. Speaking of greatness, Cheryl, tell us.
Okay, so that's pretty, y'all. That's pretty much it. The rest of that, they just go basically and kind of give where you can follow them. I have included the link to that interview in the description box, so go check it out if you want to do a rerun or do your own live or your own commentary on it. But I thought overall it was a pretty interesting discussion. I did appreciate that they got people on there who shared different point of views. I didn't agree with everybody on the panel, of course, but there were some points made that I thought were valid. What I will say is this: as always, date and marry whoever you want. Of course, this my channel. I believe that people should date and marry who they want. I believe in choosing the best option. I believe in learning how to choose, but of course, choosing the best option. Now, of course, I have an affinity for Black love. I love having a Black husband. I love when I see Black families. So I have a special place in my heart for that and will always be in support of that. But also no shade to those who decide to date and marry out. What I do and what I will say, though, is just be honest about what that means. Be honest about what that means today in America, 2022, and understand that will not necessarily make your life easier. In some instances, it could make it more difficult, especially depending upon the actual scenario. So I just say be honest about it, and also just stop blaming, ladies in particular, stop blaming men. Don't get into a situation where you blame men for all your problems. Because you can't be, I think in the words of Obsidian, shout out to Obsidian, you can't be a victim queen. You can't be a queen and goddess and divine and have all the supposed power and energy and manifestation and then be complaining about how Black men oppress you all the time. The two don't make sense together. Either you have freedom and agency over your own life, or you don't. But you can't be some queen, goddess, mother of the earth who runs everything and who has all this esoteric supernatural power. And then when things go wrong in your life, you blame men for it. It don't work like that. So I'm saying don't use this as a reason, or don't use your failed mistakes as a reason to blame men. What I saw on that panel was a clear example of how to blame men for everything wrong in your own life. And that's dangerous because it never actually challenges you to get real with yourself and deal with your own trauma, deal with your own pain, deal with your own mistakes, deal with your own, quite frankly, your spiritual issues. That's dangerous. That is incredibly dangerous. And it doesn't do anything to help you. No one ever, hating somebody or holding hatred in your heart is not how you experience serenity. You can't be hating people. You can't be holding on to this bitterness and have this vendetta against men or look at men or whoever as the oppressor in your life. You can't hold on to that negative energy and that negativity and then also experience serenity and peace in your life. They don't work like that. So that's what I'm saying. It's don't fall into that trap. Don't fall into that trap. And I saw a comment earlier that someone said, "Oh, Shay, aren't you Christian? Why aren't you Christian? Aren't Black women a reflection of Black men?" I will say this. Yes, I am a Christ follower. And a part of being a Christ follower is actually being accountable for your own sins and actually being accountable for your own mistakes. Now, there's been, in the spiritual system, there has been a sacrifice made for that, right? There are ways to experience cleansing and to turn around and to repent, but that's individual. Christianity never gave anybody a right to blame all the problems on somebody else. So as a Christ-following woman, my responsibility is to look in the mirror and say, well, where did I mess up? Where did I do something in my life that was wrong? Where did I say something or make a mistake that brought sin or destruction into my life? And to turn around and repent and to receive the grace and the power of God to do something better. That's what it means to be a Christian. A Christian is not, now I blame all my issues on Black men. So I don't know where that comment was coming from, but if that's what you think Christianity is, it's not. That's a lie. That is a lie. Christianity, by and large, should and will encourage you to be self-accountable, to be humble, to be truthful and honest about your own mistakes, truthful and honest about your own bitterness and wretchedness and vile behavior and vile thoughts. That is what the gospel does. It does not give you a reason to blame men or blame other things. It gives you the reason to look yourself in the mirror and say, God, help me. I need change. I ruined my life. That is what it's about. So do not think that that's what that is. I wanted to clarify that. Also, I did see another one. This one, Dane C. It says the main reason why there is still taboo about interracial unions, especially with whites, is because we never had a formal apology from this country. Yeah, that actually makes sense. Yeah, there's never been a formal apology from this nation. That makes sense. So it's like, it's why it's like, you know, you talk to different people, you're going to get different opinions on it, because it's, I think you really make a great point there. Yeah, so I think that's what I got. I want to make sure I got everything. Appreciate all of you guys who showed support. We're hanging out, we're liking, subscribing. I know there was some hate watchers in there, but that's okay too. Like I said, I have no hate for nobody. I have no hatred for anybody on the panel. I don't have hatred for Cynthia G. I don't agree with anything that she says. I think she's a very wounded woman, and I truly hope that she gets the help that she needs. But I think until then, it's important that there is some pushback to some of these toxic ideas, so that at the very least, women can have the choice, and women can have the option of hearing two different narratives. You get to choose whatever you want to choose, but at least it doesn't go out there unaddressed. So anyways, thank you guys for hanging out with me. This was fun. As always, stay tuned for other upcoming content. Be sure to like, subscribe to this channel, share it with somebody if you would like. Also, become a channel member if you want to hang out with us. You can get access to exclusive content. We are small in channel membership, but when we go live, that means we can have a really close-knit conversation. So yeah, become a channel member. You can do so for as little as $4.99. And yeah, stay tuned for other upcoming content. Hit the notification bell if you have not already, so you are informed each time I go live, each time I drop a video. And yeah, stay tuned, guys. And thanks for watching. Peace.